Right, you lot. So, I've been reading comments and I've been reading questions from you lot. So the main one at the moment appears to be about priming. What is the best way and how do you prime your nitro engine? This is very, very simple to do. In fact, it's the most easiest thing ever. If you haven't worked it out yet, you'll know after this and you'll think to yourself, my golly gosh, why didn't I think of that? Now there is a few different ways that you can do it. There's more than one way to skin a cat. I love that phrase, more than one way to skin a cat, because there is more than one way to prime your nitro engine. So the way that I tend to prefer is by simply taking off the little pressure pipe that goes into the exhaust. You can probably see it there. It goes onto the exhaust. Now the reason that goes on the exhaust is because the exhaust pressurizes the fumes from the exhaust, go up that pipe and pressurize the nitro tank, which then pushes the nitro into the carburetor, which then makes it run. The nitro engine, the tank and the exhaust, they are the fuel pump. Alright, they're not gravity fed as some people seem to believe, but the engine itself is the pump to pump its own fuel into itself. Anyway, that's a topic for a different video. So I tend to prefer to take that pipe off and blow down there, which then pressurizes the tank and pushes the nitro into the engine. You only need to do it a little bit, and you can watch it go up the pipe, or you can listen to it go as well. Then you know it's primed. Okay, you only need to do it for when that fuel goes into that pipe and reaches the carburetor nipple, then you know it's primed. There's another way which other people seem to prefer. A lot of people that I speak to and know of prefer this way for some reason. I don't think it's quite as effective, but they're all effective. They all do work, by the way, all the methods that I'm going to show you. The other way is by putting your finger or your thumb or something over the end of the exhaust and pulling the pong start, because that then puts compression, just air, nothing else, just air, into the engine, which then goes through the exhaust up the pipe and pressurizes the tank as it would if it was running. You only need to pull it maybe 3, 4, 5 times and you should see the nitro start to go up the pipe into the carburetor. But you must make sure there's something, either your finger or something else, over the end of the exhaust to block it from going out. That way all the pressure goes into the tank. The other way, alright, some people seem to like this method. Personally, it works. It does work. But I just can't, I just think it's a bit of a strange method. And that's pinching the pipe that goes onto the top of your nitro tank. Pinch it. Right, you can still see, can't you? I think just about. Pinch it. And then lift up the lid of your nitro tank and just drop it a few times. Now the idea of that is, when you lift, if you don't pinch that pipe, the air that you're trapping in the tank is going to go back down the pressure pipe into the exhaust. So you're supposed to have to pinch that pipe, so the air, when you open up the lid, it traps air in the tank, and you're letting it go, you're snapping it, which is then pushing, obviously you're trapping a little bit of air in the top of the tank, aren't you? When you snap that shut, it's creating a bit of a pressure, and it's going to push down and push the nitro up into the pipe, into the carburetor. It does work, yeah. I just find it a bit of a strange way. I don't know why. It works, you know. There's more than one way to skin a cat, and whatever way suits you works. I don't know. I don't really ever do that particular method. Now and again, personally, I do put my finger over the exhaust and turn the engine over. Some of you may have seen me do that before. Sometimes I do that. Sometimes I do a combination of 2 different ways. I pretty much always favour the taking the pipe off the exhaust and blowing down it. It's just the way that I was taught when I was younger, more than 20 years ago now. more than 20 years ago, 2003, I got my first Nitro car, and yeah, the way that I was taught by the people in the shop was to blow down that pipe. I've done it ever since, and I think it's just the most effective, the quickest. Not necessarily on this particular car, because the pipe's in a very awkward place to put that little the nipples in an awkward place, but a lot of buggies and things, the nipples at the top, and you just slot it on quite easily. So I do tend to change the method of priming depending on how the exhaust is. If the pressure pipe nipple is at the back or somewhere awkward to get the pipe back on again, I don't normally bother. I put my finger over the exhaust and do that method. If the pressure pipe nipple is on the top of the exhaust, like some buggies or Savages or whatever, the nipple is there, for example, very easy just to put the pipe on and off. Then I'll favour that method because it's just the way I prefer doing it. Sometimes, as I was about to say before I went off in a little bit, sometimes I do two methods. I do the blow down the pipe method, but sometimes it doesn't quite prime enough. It's just the way it is. And it doesn't start within 2 or 3 pulls, and you can tell if there's fuel in the engine because of the way it feels and sounds. If I think there's not enough fuel in there, I won't bother taking the pipe off and blowing down it again. I'll simply just carry on turning the engine over, but just whack my finger over the exhaust to jam a little bit more nitro in that carburettor. And then that'll usually finish off the priming and it'll start. So I dare say there's other methods that other people are going to say of priming. I mean, if you really wanted to, not the normal way, but if you really wanted to, you could take the foams out your air filter, or take the air filter off altogether, get your nitro and jam a little bit down the throat of the carburettor. That does exactly the same as what you're going to be doing when you prime the ways that I've just said. What priming is pushing nitro into the carburettor. That's what priming is. It's getting the fuel into the engine ready to start it, because it's got to get there somehow. That's what priming is. So it doesn't really matter how you get that fuel into that carburettor, as long as it gets there. So you could just tip it straight down the throat. You've got more risk of flooding it that way, because it's not regulated at all, really, is it? But it doesn't really matter how it gets there. The point of it is it gets there. If you ask me what way I prefer, as I've said, I prefer to take the pipe off and blow down that pipe. Second is put my finger over the exhaust, turning the engine over, and I never do that snappy method. It works, it does work, but it's just not something that I ever do. I know a lot of people that do that, but I don't. I can't really think of any other way that is a thing, anyway, of priming your nitro engine. But as I said, as long as the fuel gets into the carburettor, it doesn't matter how you do it. If you really wanted to, and you was really this sort of person that's a bit strange, you could get some nitro in a little mini syringe and take the things off and syringe it in there. It doesn't matter how you get that fuel in the carburettor. But yeah, there we go. Hopefully I've cleared a few things up there. One thing I will say is, though, when it comes to priming, for some reason, I don't know why, I don't see it myself, but I do try to understand it. For some reason, a lot of beginners or new people to nitro, they're a bit afraid of the engine, and they worry about priming the engine just in case they do something wrong. Let me tell you now, you cannot do anything wrong as such. When you're trying to prime your engine to start it up, you can't do any damage at all. You can't do anything wrong. Well, you can do something wrong. You can prime it too much and you can flood it, but that's not a problem because you can just unflood it. I have a video of what to do if you flood your engine. That's probably one of the most common things that beginners such as yourselves do when you're learning about your car. You know, when you got it for the first time and you're trying to get to grips with it, one of the most common things is probably flooding it, priming it too much because you're worrying that you've not done enough. Now, nothing's going to happen if you don't prime it enough. Yeah, all that'll happen is there's just not going to be any nitro in the carburetor to go into the engine when you try and start it, so it just won't start. You're never going to do any damage whatsoever, so don't worry. It just simply won't start. And if it doesn't, make sure you look in the pipes, because as long as you've got clear pipes, which most nitros do, you'll be able to see if there's nitro in the pipe. Now, sometimes if the pipe is full of nitro, I mean, I can tell the difference, but that's only because I've got the experience. Sometimes you might look at it and you can't see any bubbles, which is good, but you might not be able to tell if it's full of nitro or empty. There's only one way to find out, and you don't need to worry about it. All you have to do to find out if there's any nitro in the pipe or if it's empty, simply take it off. Take the pipe off. If there's nitro in the pipe, it's going to drip out. Yeah, you'll see it drip out, and it might even keep running out. You never know. Then you know there's nitro in that pipe. And all you have to do, pop it back on. You might have to prime it a little bit, but I wouldn't worry about that because you might flood it. Pop it back on and try and start it. It'll prime itself after that. If you've got any questions about priming or starting your engine or anything like that, just put it in the comments and we'll smooth it over, and before you know it, you'll be a pro. You'll be buzzing around. You won't even be thinking about it. Priming your engine will be second nature. You won't even have to think about it. You'll be getting your gear out, putting your car down and priming it and having it started and running and buzzing around without even realising you've done it. Thanks for watching. If you're enjoying this beginner series, if it's helping you, please let me know in the comments, because if I know that what I'm doing is helping you, it gives me the inspiration to keep going, because the more I can help you lot and the more I can help to keep the hobby of Nitro RC alive, the better, and I won't stop at anything. I'll catch you later on. Treat people nicely. Don't take people for granted, because that's not a good thing to be doing, and we'll all have a very nice happy life together on this very lovely planet. Cheerio.